Okay, welcome in. My name's Dr. Hart. I'm one of the faculty in the ME department. I guess maybe many of you have had me for class before or know who I am, but for those that don't, um, gotta let somebody in here. Nice to meet you. I'm the coordinator of the senior design in the mechanical engineering department. So we're gonna have two meetings over the course of this term, the spring term, to talk about some of the things that are important to get across to you before we start senior design next year. So the first meeting that we're gonna have here is about what to expect in senior design. And then later in the term, probably late April, something like that, I'll present all the projects that are available to you, and then you will fill out a digital form giving your preferences on projects, and I'll do the project matching. So by the end of the year this year, you should know what your project is, who your teammates are, and what you're going to be working on for next year. So let's go through it. Should be sort of a short meeting today, maybe 15, 20 minutes, something like that. So, as a senior, you're going to work on this multi-semester, no longer quarter design project, which is going to leverage sort of all the things that you've learned along your way as a mechanical engineering student. So let's get into it. Generally, what is senior design? So this sequence, it's a multi-term sequence, so 2 semesters for you guys starting next year, aimed at giving you a design experience which is going to leverage your problem solving and engineering skills, which you've developed over your undergraduate time. Finally, you can put your skills to good use. You're going to work on one specific project for the duration of this sequence as a member of a team. And so teams usually have, like you see here, between 3 and 8 people, and each particular team is guided by an ME advisor. So I'm the coordinator, which is different than your particular advisor, and we'll show the hierarchy in just a sec, just so you see kind of what that looks like. But projects kind of vary significantly. I mean, mechanical engineering is a broad field, right? So some examples here listed for senior design that's going on this particular year. We have design of a testing fixture from Milwaukee Tool. There's one team that's building an unmanned aerial vehicle, UAV, for the AIAA Design Build Fly competition, working with Dr. Fleming on that. One team is working with Dr. V to redesign an engine for the Concorde aircraft, which is kind of a cool project. There's not really a prototype associated with that one. They're just kind of doing it on paper and in CAD, but still kind of a fun project. And I'm working with a group that's designing a new buckling fixture for the Mechanics of Materials lab. So a pretty broad range of applications here and ideas that you can see, but hopefully, once we gather our projects and present them to you, you'll find something that is at least somewhat interesting to you to work on for next year. Okay, let's talk about this hierarchy just a little bit, because it's a bit confusing, so I want to just get this out there. I am the senior design coordinator. So what that means is I make sure everything for senior design more or less runs smoothly. And then sort of the next level down is your advisors. So there are many ME faculty that advise projects, and some ME faculty sort of advise multiple projects. So this is kind of what it looks like. My role as the coordinator is to sort of do the things that you see on the right there. So I'm going to organize seminars. We'll talk a little bit about the seminars in just a bit. Create the syllabus. I'll do the matching at the end of this term. I collect your written reports. We'll talk a little bit about what those need to look like in just a second. You'll do oral presentations, so I kind of organize that. I sort of resolve conflicts if you have them with your advisors, things like that. The role of the faculty advisor, who's kind of like your direct supervisor, more or less, is to guide the project. They're going to be the ones responsible for your grades. You're going to meet with them weekly, maybe more frequently than that. And they're going to maybe be the interface with your customer if you do have an industry-sponsored project and have a customer for your particular project. Okay. What you guys have to do, and we'll get into more about this in just a second, but typical design things: design a problem, objectives and constraints, background research, create some original designs, down select to the best design, and then sort of refine those designs as you go. Okay, so what do you need to take this class? So here's kind of a flow chart that hopefully you've received from your academic advisors that sort of outlines where you should be-ish right now. Maybe some people slightly ahead, some people slightly behind, but we're going to go through the transition over this upcoming summer, and so your track should look roughly like this. And in order to take the senior design sequence in your senior year, you will hopefully have completed 2 out of the 3 core ME tracks as a junior. So the core ME tracks, we sort of break them into the energy sequence, which would be things like your thermal classes, your heat transfer classes, and your fluids classes. The material science track, which culminates in manufacturing processes, but has things like material science, engineering materials, manufacturing processes. And then the mechanics sequence is mechanics, materials 2, instrumentation, and machine components. So hopefully you'll have completed at least 2 out of the 3 of these. Better if you complete all 3 of those core tracks. If for some reason you're off track and haven't been able to complete 2 of these 3 tracks, doesn't necessarily disqualify you. Send me an email. Maybe we can work something out or figure something out. Okay, the next thing we kind of have to talk about is how our teams and projects selected. So kind of in the middle right now of collecting the ideas for what the projects might be for next year. So that's kind of happening right now, and the projects are coming from local industries. So we've had projects from Milwaukee Tool, Harley Davidson, Rockwell Automation, Allen Bradley, um, all sorts of industries local to Milwaukee. Ideas also come from ME professors. So professors that might want to have a team for a design competition, like how Dr. Fleming's doing the design build fly competition. Dr. Mahintla usually does like the ASME design competition, and MSOE has done quite well. There's some people that typically like to have projects associated with like formula teams. So redesign of a chassis or redesign of a drivetrain, something like that is quite common. And last ideas could come from students. So if you have an idea for a project, you might submit one. I'll talk a little bit more about exactly what you need at the end of this talk if you're interested in submitting a project. So once we collect all these ideas, we're going to have another meeting later in the term, probably April 21st, I think is what I'm shooting for right now. And in that second meeting, I'll present all the projects to you, and then you'll fill out a digital form. That digital form, you're going to say, you're going to rank every single project that I present on a scale of 1 to 5. And so I get an idea of what projects you really, really like and what projects you really don't want to work on. Then I also ask who you might want to work with. And then I sit down with a big pot of coffee and try to match everybody. It's not perfect. I do my best, but you're not necessarily guaranteed to work with people you want to work with or projects that you want to work on. I really do my best, and usually it shakes out pretty well. I haven't really had that. I actually don't think I've ever had any complaints about the project matching and how it's gone. So it's going to happen. But by the end of this year, like I said, you'll know who you're going to work with and what you're going to work on by the end of this spring term. So let's look at the typical progression. It's going to be weird, or not weird, but different next year. We have traditionally been on quarter systems, so 3 different quarters, but now we're going to go to a semester system where we have 2 semesters. And in order to complete the senior design sequence, you must take both classes in sequence to complete the sort of requirements. So you'll take MEC 4901 in the fall and MEC 4902 in the spring. And roughly what you're going to see in each one of those 2 terms, it might vary by project, but in the fall term, you're going to do the very basic things that go into almost every single design. You're going to formulate a problem, you'll do some background research, you'll define objectives and constraints, brainstorm some initial design ideas, down select to what the best design or what you think the best design is at that moment, and then start on some initial CAD drawings. Then in the spring semester, you'll actually start building a prototype, hopefully. Refining your design with some analytical engineering calculations, things like that, finalizing the design, making a bill of materials, hopefully then ordering parts, fabricating a prototype, testing a prototype, and refining that prototype. One thing that's nice about the ME department here is we have a bit of an endowment that we have money available for students to make prototypes. Usually there's about $1,000 every single year for each team to make a prototype. So most teams get to actually build something, and we provide funding from the ME department to allow you to do that, which, obviously is nice. You can actually get your hands on doing something, getting in the shop, making something. It's like the essence of engineering, right? Of building the thing. So we want to make sure that you get that opportunity. Now, what do you need to deliver at the end? All groups have to do the following. In the fall term, you'll have to deliver a written interim report, like a proposal for what you want to sort of build in the spring term. But that proposal would include things like, what is your problem statement? What are your objectives and constraints for your designs? Show your initial design concepts, how you selected to what is the best design for your particular project. It just gives you some accountability and almost like you're going to present your idea to a customer. You almost want to think about it like, I'm going to deliver this report to the customer as like, this is what we want to do for you, and this is what we want to build. What do you think? And so that's kind of the big first step and first hurdle. And then hopefully in the second term, you'll have something pretty well hashed out so you can get into actually making that. And in the second term, your deliverable is going to be your final design report, which sort of specifies everything about the design, all your engineering calculations, maybe some drawings, assembly drawings, part drawings for your final design. And then you'll also give an oral presentation of your final design. Not quite sure exactly how that's going to go next year. Maybe it's going to be a poster session. Maybe it's going to be, a typical oral presentation, kind of with PowerPoint slides in front of an audience of your peers and any faculty. I haven't quite decided exactly how that's going to look next year, but we'll definitely have some oral presentation of some kind. Those are things that every group must absolutely do. But there are other things that your group might necessarily have to do. And that's because aside from the requirements I gave on the last slide, your individual project advisor might have additional requirements, and they usually will. So most advisors would require the team to meet all together on a weekly basis, giving status updates. The way I run my groups is that I ask them to provide, 3 to 4 PowerPoint slides, kind of telling me what they did on the weekly. So just getting some feedback every single week from your advisor is nice. Some advisors give homework assignments. That's more common in the first term than the second term, but sometimes that is done as well. There are also weekly seminars that are going to occur just in the fall term, and the seminars are somewhat informational at the front, but then experiential in the second sort of half of the term. So what do I mean by that? Well, early on in the term, we're going to have 1 hour long seminars where like someone from the library comes in and talks about how to do background research and what are codes and standards and how do I get journal articles that I might need and how do I look up current state of the art for designs, things like that. We have a lawyer come in and talk about IP and IP protection. So that's kind of nice. It's actually the guy that we have come in as a former MSOE ME grad who turned lawyer, patent lawyer, which is kind of cool. Then later in the fall term, we'll have industry professionals come in. So we've had people from SpaceX come in. We've had people from GM, GE, Milwaukee Tool usually comes in, brings a bunch of cool stuff. And they're really coming in just to talk about the engineering profession. So what you're going to expect when you first graduate, things they wish they would have known when they were in your position coming out of school, sort of those sorts of things in the seminar. So the seminars are hopefully meant to be interesting, not some slog drag thing that you have to sort of go to. I always get questioned about grades. How are we graded? Grading for the senior design sequence and course is a little bit nebulous. It's not as well defined as a typical class where I do homework and I got a 90% and I got an exam and I got a 76%. Whatever, there's not such a tight numerical situation here. Different project advisors have different ways in which they grade. The way I like to do it is I kind of give the team a grade based on their written reports, and then I have team evaluations where I sort of adjust the grades based on sort of team feedback and what I perceive the amounts of work of each of the students. So it can really vary, all right? But if you're doing what you need to do, you shouldn't expect anything less than like a solid B, right? If you're showing up to meetings, you're contributing, getting done what you need to get done, putting in the effort, this is not a class where you should be too worried about failing, all right? Also, you got to attend the seminars, so if you don't do that, your grade's going to be reduced. Okay. Last kind of thing here I want to talk about in this little informational seminar is student project ideas. So if you do have an idea for a project and you would like to submit that idea, we're open to that. However, your idea needs to be in the form of a problem statement. So here's what I mean. In order to submit an idea, you need to prepare sort of 1 or 2 paragraphs of a proposal in written form and submit to me, including a tentative title, a brief description of a problem. Okay, this is very important. You don't want to say our design is going to be this. That's what the class is about. The class is figuring out what the design should look like. In order to submit a project, the project needs to be in the form of a problem. Like, I can't reach the lever in my John Deere tractor, and that's a problem. Okay? I mean, very open-ended, very broad. So if you're going to submit an idea for a project, it needs to be in that form. All right. You also have to have a suggested advisor who has already looked at your written proposal and has at least agreed in part that it's a good problem that could be solved with the senior design process. Okay? If you got to meet all those check marks and you're still interested in submitting your project, you can then do that to me through email. I will accept these possible projects up until April 10th, and that's mostly because we kind of have to figure out all the projects that we have for a time when I present all of them to you so that you can select which ones you want to do. All right, so I've kind of mentioned this, but this is kind of the close of the meeting. I told you it was going to be sort of a short meeting, but what's next? Once I compile all the projects from you, we're going to have a meeting where I present them all to you. Then you'll fill out your preferences of what you want to work on, who you might want to work with, and then I'll do my matching. That meeting will probably happen in late-ish April. I'm shooting for April 21st, probably in the free hour, just like this one. Okay, so that's going to be it for this meeting. Short and sweet, not too much more to that. I'll stick around just generally if people have questions. So other than that, if you don't have any questions, you're free to go. But I will stick around if people do have specific questions. Looks like Dylan, you do have a question. If you do have a question, you can just go ahead and pop in and unmute yourself and ask.
Right, so I was just wondering if when you present the projects, are we going to know who the advisors are for each of the projects?
Usually we don't know exactly who they are at the moment, but a lot of times we do because certain projects are proposed by certain faculty. So let's say if Dr. Fleming proposes the design build fly competition again, which he has already, I know that he will be the advisor for that particular project. So in some cases, I do know who the advisor is. In some cases, I don't. I would say 70%-ish I would know.
Okay.
Other questions?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. So we do have a group of 4 dudes that we've been talking about doing the project for about a year now. 2 of us are ME and 2 of us are EE, electrical.
Yep.
What is the possibility of doing that?
Yeah, no problem. We've done cross-department projects before, so if you want to do that, that's cool. You would have to have an advisor in both departments, one in ME, one in EE. So if you're going to propose a project, you would need to have a rough idea of who might want to be your advisor both in ME and EE. And you'd have to have a pretty good outline of maybe like what the project would look like. But we've done that in the past before. Come talk to me, I'll coordinate it, okay?
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Will the space mission, the design project, be offered this year? Or do you know anything about that?
Yeah, so the Space Mission Design Competition is one that I've done every year for the last couple of years. That project will almost certainly be offered. This year, the students are doing the design of a Martian ascent vehicle, so a vehicle that goes from the surface of Mars to Mars Sol 5 orbit. And the year before that, it was the design of a lander to land on the Martian moons Phobos and Deimos. So if that sort of stuff interests you, that should be a project that is available. We try to follow the AIAA design prompt for their formal competition. That usually doesn't come out until mid-August, so I don't know exactly what the project will necessarily be, but something along those lines, space mission design.
Thank you. And is there anything we could do right now to prepare for senior design in general, or maybe even that project?
Pass your classes.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Hey, I was wondering what time of day are those seminars? Are they like during the free hour?
Seminars the last 2 years have been Tuesdays at 10 a.m., but I have no idea when we go to the semester system if that's going to stay the same. When you sign up for senior design, there will be like a listed time for that class. Usually there are 3 blocks of time during the week that are held for senior design. 2 of those are meant to be for group meetings, and then 1 is meant to be for the seminar. So you'll see that in the scheduler when you actually go to sign up for that class.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can barely hear you, Jensen.
You can barely hear me? All right. Well, I don't know.
That's better. I got you now. It's better now.
Better? Okay, so sorry I joined a little bit late. So are we able to choose our own group for this project, or are we going to be designated groups?
Right, so once I present all the projects, you'll fill out a digital form, and in that form, you'll rate all of the projects on a scale of 1 to 5, and then you will submit a list of people you might be interested in working with. And I also ask you what's more important to you, your project that you select or the people that you work with. So your answers to those questions will dictate what happens to you.
All right, thank you.
Choose wisely. Other questions? Okay, if nothing else, we'll call the meeting here. I did record this, so I'll post this on YouTube and share the link with you probably by the end of the day. Until we meet again.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.